She yelled at the wrong millionaire CEO. Then his mother said she should be the daughter-in-law. Before we dive in, I want to know, where in the world are you watching from right now? Type your city in the comments so we can see just how far this story reaches. And when we get to the end, I dare you to rate it from 0 to 10, because this one might just break your heart. Now, enjoy the story. It was a crisp morning on Park Avenue. Through the glittering glass of a luxury cafe, Scarlett Miller froze in her tracks. Her eyes had just landed on a scene no one ever wants to witness. A man in a blazing red suit, the one she believed was her best friend's boyfriend, sat laughing with another woman. Scarlett's heart erupted like fire. Before her mind could catch up with her emotions, her heels were already striking against the marble floor inside the cafe. She pointed a trembling finger at him and shouted, "Coward, traitor." The cafe fell silent. Cups clattered onto saucers. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. And then Scarlett realized this wasn't Mark at all. The man she had just humiliated wasn't some unfaithful boyfriend. He was Grant Costa, one of Manhattan's youngest, most powerful CEOs, and the woman sitting gracefully beside him wasn't a mistress. She was his mother, the formidable Mrs. Elena Costa. In one single mistake, Scarlett had turned herself into the scandal of the cafe. She had lashed out at a billionaire in front of his mother, without knowing she had just set destiny in motion, because that reckless outburst would open the door to an arranged marriage, a war of social class, and a love that defied every boundary. Park Avenue gleamed under the morning sun, pouring through the cafe's tall glass windows. Inside, silk dresses and tailored suits were as common as the air itself. Scarlett Miller, 28, an event manager at a five-star hotel, walked along the stone-paved sidewalk with her heart heavy. Her phone still buzzed in her hand with the anonymous message. "Lisa is being cheated on. He's at that cafe right now." Scarlett had never been the kind of woman to sit back while her best friend suffered. With tousled brown hair from a sleepless night and anger blazing in her eyes, she pressed forward. And then she saw him. Through the clear glass, there he was, a red suit, a slick smile, a blonde woman giggling at his side. Scarlett didn't need further proof. She shoved the cafe door open, her heels pounding like drums on marble. Every head turned as she strode toward the table. Stopping right in front of him, she raised her voice, sharp and cutting. "Mark, you disgusting traitor. How dare you hurt Lisa? And now, sit here laughing with another woman. You're nothing but trash, dressed up in cheap luxury." The entire cafe froze. A spoon halted midair. The elegant silver-haired woman at the table coughed in shock. The man in the red suit arched a brow, his emerald eyes flashing with disbelief. And in that heartbeat, Scarlett's stomach dropped. This wasn't Mark. This was Grant Costa, CEO of Costa Tech, heir to one of the most powerful families in Manhattan. And the woman next to him was not a fling. It was his mother, the iconic Elena Costa of New York high society. Scarlett's blood ran cold. Her lips went dry. She had just accused a billionaire CEO of betrayal in front of his mother. Her fate, her pride, her very life seemed to hang in the balance. So let me ask you, if you were Scarlett in that moment, would you run? Or would you lift your chin and fight back? Tell me in the comments what you would do. Part 1, The Unexpected Proposal. The room fell into a silence so heavy it felt as though time itself had frozen. Scarlett stood paralyzed, her trembling hand still suspended in the air, pointing at the face of the man she had just insulted. Her heartbeat pounded so loudly she was certain the entire cafe could hear it. The elegant, silver-haired woman set her cup of coffee down with a graceful motion, but her eyes, sharp and penetrating, seemed to pierce straight into Scarlett's soul. She tilted her head slightly, lips curling into a smile that carried both mystery and authority. "Young lady, do you even know who you just yelled at?" Scarlett's mouth fell open, her lips dry as dust. She wanted to apologize, to explain, but her throat locked tight. The man across from her, Grant Costa, didn't flare up in anger, nor did he appear embarrassed. He simply sat there, still as stone, his deep green eyes as cold as a winter lake, staring straight into her until every nerve in her body felt frozen. In that moment, the noise of Manhattan outside the car horns, the shuffle of shoes, the restless wind vanished completely. There was only Grant's gaze, distant yet overwhelming. Scarlett swallowed hard, her voice cracking. I'm sorry. I mistook you for someone else. I thought you were..." But before she could finish, the older woman raised her hand, silencing her. Her voice, rich and commanding, echoed like a church bell. "Scarlett Miller, isn't it? Event manager at the Lexington Hotel." Scarlett blinked in shock. Her heart dropped into her stomach. "How does this woman know my name? My job?" Elena Costa took another calm sip of coffee, her eyes never leaving Scarlett. "You just called my son a coward and a traitor. To be honest, I've waited years for someone brave enough to say that to his face." Grant's brow twitched, his lips pressing into a thin line as though he were holding back a reaction. Scarlett, however, stood in stunned silence. None of this made sense. Then Elena's voice fell firm and unshakable, each word striking like a hammer on molten steel. "Scarlett, I have a proposal. You will marry my son." The words exploded in the cafe, ricocheting off its marble and glass. Heads turned. A spoon clattered against porcelain. Scarlett swore she could hear the gasp of every single customer. Her mind spun. One part of her wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Another part felt ice crawling down her spine. "Marry him. You. You must be joking," Scarlett stammered. Elena shook her head, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. "I never joke about marriage, especially not when I believe you are the only one who can show Grant Costa what a real home feels like." Grant's jaw tightened, a flicker of protest flashing in his eyes. "Mother!" But Elena placed a firm hand on his wrist, silencing him. She turned her gaze back to Scarlett, waiting as if daring her to accept a destiny that had just been written. Scarlett's chest heaved. Every rational thought screamed that this was madness, nothing but a nightmare. And yet, her heart gave a trembling beat she couldn't name. Would you have stayed to hear her out? Or would you have run? Scarlett chose to run. She shook her head, voice breaking. "I'm sorry, but I can't. I'm not a puppet to be handed off like property." Without waiting for another word, she spun on her heels. The sharp clack of her stilettos struck the marble as she bolted for the exit. The glass doors closed behind her with a heavy thud, leaving only stunned silence in her wake. Outside, Park Avenue roared with traffic, car horns slicing through the air. But to Scarlett, it all blurred into a dizzy haze. She had just humiliated one of Manhattan's most powerful CEOs, only to have his mother propose marriage right after. It was insane, impossible, something no one would ever believe. Clutching her purse, she stormed down the sidewalk, swallowing back the sting of humiliation. Forget it. Just forget it. This will disappear. I'll never see them again. But then, a voice, low and sharp as steel, cut through the morning air. "Do you really think you can walk away that easily?" Scarlett froze. Her lungs locked. Slowly, she turned. Grant Costa was striding out of the cafe. The navy suit hugged his broad shoulders, each step purposeful, commanding the space around him. His emerald eyes glinted under the morning sun cold, unyielding, impossible to ignore. Even strangers passing by stopped to look. Scarlett's lips trembled. I don't care about your mother's ridiculous idea. I just want to forget this ever happened. Grant closed the distance between them, his presence towering, suffocating. His voice was calm, but each word hit like a strike of iron. Scarlett Miller, you humiliated me in front of my mother, and now you think you can just walk away without taking responsibility. Scarlett's grip tightened on her purse strap, her knuckles white. I already apologized. It was a mistake. I don't owe you anything. Grant narrowed his eyes, a dangerous spark flickering in their depths. He leaned close, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper only she could hear. Your mistake just made you the center of my mother's attention. And when she decides something, no one in this city escapes it. The words sliced through Scarlett's chest like ice. Her spine shivered. She knew, in that instant, her life had collided with a world she had only ever observed from a distance. Grant straightened, adjusting his cufflinks, his tone final, like a verdict delivered. Prepare yourself, Scarlett. My mother wasn't joking, and the next time we meet, you won't get the chance to run. Scarlett's knees weakened, Manhattan spinning around her. But it wasn't the traffic or the chaos of the city that made her tremble. It was the storm raging behind Grant Costa's cold green eyes. Part 2. The contract marriage. The fluorescent lights above buzzed cold and merciless, washing every face in the waiting hall of the Madison Avenue marriage office into the same pale shade, like life itself had been drained of color. The room was crowded. A bride clutched a bouquet of baby's breath beside her groom in a wrinkled shirt. An elderly couple with silver hair held hands timidly, as though love could still be fragile. In the far corner, a little boy chased a balloon shaped like a heart, and Scarlett Miller sat frozen on a metal chair, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her handbag, her eyes locked on the digital board flashing. C127, counter 4. Breathe, whispered Lisa beside her, squeezing her shoulder. You're not alone. Scarlett nodded, but her throat was dry. Across the aisle stood Grant Costa, straight as a drawn line, in a perfect gray suit with a silver tie pin. Beside him, James, his private lawyer, held a leather folder, expressionless, as if marriage was just another contract to notarize. Elena was not there, and somehow her absence weighed heavier than her presence ever could. The bell chimed softly, C128, counter due, through the frosted glass. Scarlett glimpsed a young couple embracing as the clerk congratulated them, joy radiating in a way that blurred the entire city outside. For a brief moment, something warm streaked across Scarlett's chest. Painful, but tender. She had once dreamed this day would feel so different. Then her number appeared, C129, counter 6. Grant moved first, pulling out the chair for her with a gesture so flawless it felt mechanical. The clerk, glasses perched low on his nose, adjusted the forms. His voice was even, official. Full name of the bride, Scarlett Miller, she whispered. Do you wish to change your surname after marriage? The pen hovered over the blank line. Scarlett could smell the sharp tang of ink. Her hand trembled. Miller, the name her father had carved into the back of a wooden chair with a worn knife. The name her mother had scrawled on mason jars of peach jam every summer. To give it up would be to give up the story that made her who she was. She shook her head. No, I'll keep it. The clerk nodded, sliding the form to Grant. The scratch of his pen across the paper sounded like a blade slicing clean. James placed another document on the counter. Prenuptial agreement. Both parties have read and accepted. Just sign at the bottom. Scarlett lifted her gaze. Grant's green eyes met hers. Not cold, not cruel, only quiet. He angled the paper toward her, his voice low. If you're not comfortable, say so. She let out a dry laugh. Since when has anything about this been comfortable? And she signed, Scarlett Miller. At the counter beside them, the boy's balloon slipped from his hand, floating upward until it snagged against the humming fluorescent light. He froze, lip trembling, eyes wide with unshed tears. His mother reached up helplessly, too short. The clerk stamped the paper with a sharp thud. By the laws of New York State, you are now husband and wife. Congratulations and good luck. Lisa let out a shaky breath, clutching Scarlett's hand as tears stung her eyes. Grant silently passed Scarlett a folded tissue. When she looked up, he was already on his feet, stretching to free the red balloon. He tugged it down and crouched to return it to the boy, whose smile burst like sudden sunshine. It lasted only a second, but long enough to make Scarlett's chest stumble with something she couldn't name. They had just signed their lives together as strangers, and yet, in the sterile snap of bureaucracy, there had still been a balloon caught in the lights, and a man who chose to reach for it. For that fleeting instant, Scarlett let herself believe even cold walls can crack open a sliver of warmth. When the glass doors of Grant's penthouse swung open, Scarlett felt swallowed whole by another world. New York glittered beneath them, the Hudson shimmering under moonlight, traffic winding down Fifth Avenue like a river of fire. Inside, a silver-gray rug stretched across the floor. Abstract paintings spiraled with chaotic color on the walls, and every surface gleamed with luxury so pristine it felt lifeless. Scarlett stood in the doorway, still clutching her small suitcase. The place was breathtaking and hollow. She remembered her tiny rental, the faded blue curtains, the cheap jasmine oil diffuser, the worn sofa that sank under years of weight. It wasn't much, but it was home. This was not. Grant removed his jacket, draping it over a chair, then walked to the bar and poured himself a drink. No welcome, no tenderness, just the clink of glass against glass. Scarlett set down her suitcase, biting her lip. So this is how you imagine we'll live, signed papers and separate lives, under one roof. Grant didn't turn. He stared out at the skyline, voice even. I've never believed in marriage. This is a contract. We signed, and I'll uphold it. You won't want for anything. Her chest tightened. Anything except the only thing she truly wanted. To be seen, to be loved. She stepped forward, trembling, but defiant. You can buy the world, Grant, but you can't buy my heart. I'd rather sit in my cramped apartment than rot in a castle with no warmth. At last, he turned. His eyes flashed cold, but beneath the frost lingered exhaustion, almost pain. Setting down his glass, he closed the space between them. You think I want this? You think I did this for power? The truth is, I'm paying for a past I can't escape. And now, you've been dragged into it. His words hit like a half-confession, enough to rattle her. She didn't understand, but something inside her knew his wounds ran deeper than his arrogance. Before she could speak, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, face darkening. He strode to the balcony, voice low and sharp. No, I signed it. This stays buried. Understood. Scarlett's heart pounded. She couldn't catch every word, but she knew enough. This marriage wasn't just a contract. It was cover for something larger, darker. The days bled into a fragile rhythm. A morning mishap in the high-tech kitchen ended with smoke alarms shrieking, butter sizzling into black. Scarlett wanted to sink through the marble floor in shame. But Grant appeared barefoot, in a black t-shirt, calmly silencing alarms, adjusting settings, then holding ice to her burned thumb with an unexpected gentleness. Strangers, he said quietly, don't let each other get hurt. That one sentence cracked something open in her, as sharp and delicate as glass. Later, over a simple meal of pasta he had cooked himself too salty, but warm in ways that surprised her. Scarlett asked, "So, what is it?" "Grant, what's the thing you're really protecting with this marriage? Power, money, or the secret you keep whispering into your phone?" He fell silent, gaze distant, a shadow of grief flickering through his eyes. "Not what you think, but not something you're meant to know. Not yet." And for the first time, Scarlett glimpsed not a ruthless CEO, but a man carrying a weight too heavy for one heart. That night, as rain beat against the glass, she found herself writing new terms in her notebook. No direct lies. If you must hide, at least say not yet. One dinner a week, no phones. No meetings, just people. Respect each other's private corners, rooms, memories, wounds. Warn the other if their name is about to hit the press. And when one is hurt, even a small burn, the other shows up. Grant read slowly, his jaw tight at clause 5, his lips almost curved into something resembling a smile. He signed beneath her words with a bold, unshakable hand. When he handed her the apartment keys, engraved with an S, he simply said, "If anyone asks, this is our home." Scarlett's chest tightened at those two words, "our home." And later, when she found the note he had left by the coffee machine Saturday. "Pancake class, you teach? Strangers don't let each other get hurt." Her lips curved, trembling between pain and sweetness. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside, there was now a second contract, one not stamped by the state, but signed quietly with two fragile hearts. Part 3. The Trap at Work. The grand lobby of the Meridian Hotel gleamed like a palace of glass. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, scattering diamonds of light across the polished marble floor, bathing the room in an opulent glow. Scarlett stood in the middle of it all, a clipboard pressed tightly to her chest, her heart racing. Tomorrow night, the hotel would host the Global Investment Gala, the most important event of the year, where CEOs, politicians, and New York's elite would gather. Scarlett had been named lead coordinator. If she succeeded, she would finally earn her promotion to international project manager. But if she failed, she knew exactly who would be waiting to destroy her. Marka, with his smug grin, and Malfa, the sharp, ruthless veteran who had never once taken Scarlett seriously. She moved between the tables, checking every orchid centerpiece, every silver fork aligned precisely at a 45-degree angle. Every detail mattered. She paused, closing her eyes, whispering to herself, "Don't make a single mistake. Scarlett, you're wound too tight." Mark's voice drawled behind her, dripping with mockery. He stood in a pale gray suit, hair slicked back, smile smooth as glass. An event this big, maybe it should be handled by people with more experience. Malfa and I would be happy to help. Scarlett spun, her voice firm. "I've prepared for this for a month. I don't need your help." Mark only shrugged, walking away. But the glint in his eyes betrayed his schemes. From across the room, Malfa's gaze cut like a predator watching prey. That night, long after the hotel emptied, Scarlett remained, inspecting lights, menus, and the sound system. Her heels echoed in the vast space, a rhythm of pride and loneliness. At last, she sat for a moment, glancing at her phone. A message from Grant lit the screen. "Tomorrow, Meridian. I'll be there. Remember clause 5. Scarlett let out a shaky laugh, just a few clipped words. And somehow, her chest felt lighter. He would come, whatever else he was. Grant Costa made her feel less alone. But elsewhere in the hotel, a darker scene unfolded. In a dim meeting room, the glow of a laptop screen illuminated Mark and Malfa's calculating faces. Mark whispered, "All we need is to switch the schedule. When the Europeans arrive, unprepared, the whole event collapses." Scarlet will take the blame. Malfa smirked, her eyes glinting with malice. And no one will ever trust a young girl like her with power again. That seat will belong to us. Their quiet laughter filled the room. The trap was set. Scarlet was walking straight into it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Meridian's floor-to-ceiling glass, blazing across the marble floor. Scarlet arrived at 6 sharp, hair tied neatly, clipboard clutched tight. She checked orchids, tested sound, directed servers into formation. Everything was perfect until the storm hit. The assistant manager rushed toward her, sweating. "Scarlet, the schedule's been changed. The European delegation's presentation isn't at 8 tonight. It's at 5 this afternoon." Scarlet froze. Every poster, every script, every lighting cue revolved around 8 o'clock. Her voice trembled. "Who authorized this? I never signed off." The assistant showed her phone. The email bore her name, her signature. Scarlet's stomach dropped. "Forged?" Mark appeared, smiling with false innocence. "Oh dear, Scarlet, can't keep up. The Europeans will be here at 5, and you swore you had everything under control." "You know, I didn't change that schedule," Scarlet snapped, her fists white. Mark shrugged. "The evidence says otherwise. Maybe it's time someone more reliable took over." The words cut deeper than knives, but Scarlet had no time to argue. Only 5 hours to salvage the wreck. She ran to the coordination desk, her voice sharp with urgency. "Reset the timeline. Move everything to 5. Nobody leaves their station. We're pulling this off." Her young team exchanged nervous glances, but obeyed. The lobby became a battlefield of rushing staff and frantic adjustments. Sweat dampened Scarlet's brow, her chest pounding. But she refused to fall. High above, Malfa sipped champagne on the mezzanine, watching with cold amusement. "Let her drown," she murmured to Mark. "The more she struggles, the more pathetic she looks." Scarlet clenched her jaw, every bone in her body screaming with pressure. And then she remembered Grant's message. Clause 5. When one is hurt, the other shows up by 4:45 p.m. The tension was suffocating. Guests would arrive in 15 minutes. Scarlet darted from sound booth to banquet tables, checking microphones, screens, and lights. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but her determination glowed brighter. And then the nightmare struck. The master presentation file was gone, deleted from the system. Scarlet's blood ran cold. No, this can't be happening. Mark appeared behind her, voice honeyed with venom. "File missing. How careless. Looks like you're finished." "Scarlet." Scarlet spun, fury blazing. "You did this." He only smirked. "Proof?" "Scarlet, that's all that matters." Music swelled, announcing the European delegation's arrival. Scarlet's knees buckled. It was over until the doors opened. A tall figure strode in black suit, green eyes glinting like fire under the chandeliers. Grant Costa. His presence made the air itself pause. Mark paled. Scarlet's heart hammered. Grant walked straight to her, voice steady and commanding. "Who said we don't have a file?" From his pocket, he revealed a small silver USB. The lights caught its surface as if it were a blade. "Scarlet gave me the backup last week. I always prepare for the worst. And today, that backup just saved everything." The room fell silent. Scarlet's chest constricted, eyes stinging, not because he saved her, but because he had trusted her when no one else did. Malfa's hand trembled around her glass. Mark's smirk cracked into panic. Scarlet inhaled deeply, lifting her chin. "Team, positions. We've got this." Music rose. The grand doors opened. The European guests entered a flawless scene of glittering chandeliers and perfect coordination. Scarlet stood tall, commanding the storm with steady grace. And in her heart, she knew when the world tried to break her, Grant chose to stand at her side. The gala was a triumph. Lights flared, applause thundered through the meridian, and Scarlett sagged in relief behind the stage. But Grant's expression was ice. He moved to the control booth, handed the USB to IT, checked the system logs, find who deleted the original file. Moments later, the technician stammered, "Sir?" It was Mark Redding's account. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Scarlett's stomach twisted. Mark Lisa's former friend, the man she once trusted, had been the traitor. Why? "Mark?" Scarlett's voice shook. "You always said this job was your pride. And now this," Mark sneered. "This is the real world. Scarlett, the strong devour, the weak. You never belonged on this board. I just taught you a lesson." Grant stepped forward, each footfall heavy with restrained fury. His voice thundered across the hall. "In Costa Tech, or anywhere my name stands, betrayal is never forgiven. You didn't just undermine Scarlett. You disgraced us before international partners, and I will not let it pass." Mark's face drained of color. No ally rose to defend him. Scarlett bit her lip, tears spilling not from shame, but from the shock of being defended openly by the very man she once thought heartless. Grant leaned closer, voice softer. "For her alone, hold your head high. You've done nothing wrong." The words washed over her like light breaking through storm clouds. For the first time, she felt not pity, but recognition. Later, on the balcony above the glowing city, Scarlett pressed trembling hands to the railing, eyes burning with the memory of Mark's cruelty. The weak get devoured. Behind her, footsteps. Grant, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, city lights, painting his face half shadow, half flame. "You did better than I expected," he said, not polite flattery, but truth. Scarlett's voice wavered. "Without you, I would have—" "Scarlett," he cut her off, his eyes locking hers. "No one saved you tonight. You saved yourself. I only made sure cowards couldn't steal it." Her tears flowed freely now. "Why? Why believe me when everyone else doubted?" Grant's gaze softened. "Because I saw your eyes when you fought. Liars don't shake and still stand tall." The night fell silent. Scarlett lowered her head, clutching the handkerchief he offered. The gesture was simple, but it struck her deeper than any grand speech. From the glass hall behind them, Malfa and Mark watched, fear darkening their faces. Scarlett hadn't fallen, and now she had Grant Costa beside her. Scarlett straightened, lifting her chin against the cold wind. Her tears tasted of salt and something new faith. And in her heart, one question whispered louder than the storm. Could this be the beginning of something far greater than a contract marriage? Part 4. When the mother-in-law strikes. The morning after the gala, the executive offices of the Meridian Hotel felt like they were holding their breath. Whispers floated through the hallways, from front desk clerks to department heads. Yes, Scarlett Miller had pulled the event back from disaster, but doubt lingered. Could a young woman with no powerful background truly survive among wolves? Then the gilded elevator doors slid open. The sharp echo of heels rang against marble, each strike silencing the air. Elena Costa had arrived, dressed in a pearl-colored suit, silver hair pinned in a flawless bun. She needed no makeup to radiate the authority of a woman who had led an empire through 3 decades of storms. Staff scrambled to step aside, bowing their heads as she passed. Scarlett stood in the boardroom, her hands clasped tightly at her waist. She had not expected Elena to come in person. Sunlight poured from the tall windows behind her, crowning Elena with a halo of power. Her voice cut through the silence, deep, sharp, resonant. Who was in charge of last night's event? Scarlett inhaled, stepping forward. Her voice was small, but steady. "I was Scarlett Miller." For a moment, silence. All eyes turned to Elena, bracing for fury, but instead, Elena gave a slight nod. Her lips curved in a mysterious smile. Good. Then from now on, you will report directly to me, no one else. The words detonated in the room. At the far end, Malfa stiffened, her face blanching. Mark froze, eyes burning with silent rage. Scarlett herself stood stunned, her heart hammering. Elena wasn't condemning her. She was lifting her up. Elena's gaze swept the table like a blade. I expect a full report on my desk by noon. And let me be clear, anyone who dares use sabotage again will not only lose their position, they will lose every chance of touching the Costa name. Her voice sliced through the air. Scarlett clenched her fists, and for the first time, she felt she wasn't fighting alone. The clock ticked loudly, marking each heavy second. Elena settled into the chair at the head of the table, eyes piercing. Now, who changed the event schedule without official approval? The room shifted uncomfortably. Papers rustled, eyes darted. No one spoke. Elena tapped her finger once, twice, against the oak. I have no patience for silence. The IT head entered, laying a thick report on the table. His voice trembled. Mrs. Costa, the system logs clearly show who altered the schedule and deleted the files. Her assistant read aloud. Account used. Malfa Green, with supporting actions by Mark Redding. The boardroom erupted in gasps. Scarlett's breath caught, her pulse racing. Malfa turned ashen, her lips pressed thin, but her eyes blazing at being exposed. Mark's hands shook, sweat dotting his brow. Elena sat unflinching, her spine steel. Mrs. Green, Mr. Redding, you have forgotten the first principle. Integrity. Costa has no place for ambition built on cheap tricks. Malfa shot to her feet, voice sharp as a knife. Mrs. Costa, I was only protecting the company's reputation. That girl, she jabbed a finger at Scarlett, eyes burning with envy. She doesn't deserve your favor. Scarlett froze, throat tight. But before she could speak, Elena rose, her voice colder than ice. No one in this room decides Scarlett's worth except me. Scarlett's chest constricted, eyes filling with tears she fought to hide. For the first time, someone had stood before all to shield her, and that someone was Elena Costa Grant's mother. Elena's words fell like hammers, effective immediately. You are suspended, Mrs. Green, and you, Mark Redding, leave this hotel at once. You will never touch another Costa project. The room fell into dead silence. Malfa stormed out, her face twisted, while Mark slunk away without daring to look up. The boardroom still thrummed with the echo of power. Scarlett lowered her head, trembling. Relief mingled with a weight heavier than ever. Did Elena defend her for genuine belief, or simply to crush her rivals? Elena removed her glasses, her gaze softening as it landed on Scarlett. Do you know why I chose to protect you? Scarlett stammered, wide-eyed. I thought it was because the event had to succeed. Elena smiled faintly, a rare warmth brightening the room. No, it was because I saw in your eyes something many here have lost. Pride and honesty. Scarlett's tears spilled. She turned quickly, ashamed. But Elena's voice gentled. Don't hide it. True leaders are not those who never cry. They are those who rise after tears. The boardroom hushed. Even hardened executives blinked back emotion. Elena's words were not only for Scarlett, they were a reminder to them all. Wealth can buy prestige, but not dignity. Scarlett whispered, broken but resolute. Thank you. I won't let you down. Elena stepped closer, her hand firm on Scarlett's shoulder. I don't need promises. I need action. For the first time, Scarlett felt a hand strong enough to steady her. Then, like the strike of a gavel, Elena declared, Scarlett Miller, effective today, you are Regional Events Director for the Northeast. All departments will work under your lead. You report only to me." The room erupted in disbelief. Gasps, murmurs, stunned faces. Scarlett herself staggered, ears ringing, unable to grasp the reality of the promotion. "But I've only just—" Elena cut her off, voice unwavering. "No one is only just when they prove their worth. Last night, you held this hotel's honor when veterans would have failed. That is ability." Scarlett's vision blurred with tears. Every sleepless night, every humiliation, every ignored effort, all of it surged back, only to be washed away by this moment. Elena's voice rang sharp. "Any objections?" No one dared speak. Scarlett bowed her head, whispering, I won't disappoint you." Elena nodded, a rare smile gracing her lips. "I didn't give you this to please me. I gave it so you'll prove to yourself you deserve it." Scarlett's tears flowed freely now. This wasn't just a promotion. It was the rebirth of her spirit. Later that afternoon, Scarlett stepped into the gilded hallway, clutching her new files. The title still felt surreal, regional director, but footsteps thundered behind her. Malfa appeared, eyes red with rage. She blocked Scarlett at the elevator, her voice dripping venom. "You think you've won? You're nothing but a lucky little girl. Don't think you'll keep that chair for long." Scarlett's pulse spiked, but she steadied her breath. "I don't need to win. I just need to do my job." Malfa laughed bitterly, stepping closer, naive. "You'll be devoured soon enough." The air grew suffocating until a voice, cold as steel, sliced through. "Mrs. Green, Elena." She strode down the hall, navy dress flowing, her eyes blades of authority. "I made myself clear. Scarlett Miller is mine. Anyone who touches her touches me." Malfa paled, retreating a step. The weight of Elena's presence filled the corridor like a fortress wall. Scarlett's throat tightened. She had never imagined the most powerful woman in the city would defend her like this. Her tears brimmed again, not of fear this time, but of gratitude. Elena placed a firm hand on her back, eyes locked on Malfa. "Leave now, before I reconsider my leniency." Malfa fled, heels clicking away until she vanished. Scarlett swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. "If it weren't for you." Elena's gaze softened just a fraction. "Don't thank me. Be strong. That's the only way to survive this world." And for the first time, Scarlett knew. She was no longer just a girl being underestimated. She was rising, and behind her stood Elena Costa, fierce and unyielding. Part 5. The Costa Domain. The boardroom of Costa Tower gleamed under a ceiling of crystal chandeliers, their light spilling across a long walnut table polished to a dark sheen. Walls of glass revealed the Manhattan skyline beyond a city where power and intrigue coiled in every shadow. Inside this room, even breathing felt heavy, as if every inhale belonged to an unspoken war. Scarlett drew a steadying breath as she stepped inside. Her black blazer dress fit her like armor, her hair twisted into a neat bun. A folder of documents trembled slightly in her damp palms, but her eyes, clear and unwavering, shone brighter than ever. This wasn't just a board meeting. This was her trial by fire on the very battlefield of the Costas, where the powerful circled like wolves, waiting to tear apart the weak. At the head of the table sat Grant Costa, immaculate in a gray suit. His navy tie knotted sharp. He didn't look at her, yet his presence pressed against her chest, an invisible wall, both suffocating and strangely magnetic. At the far end, Malfa and Mark waited with smug composure. Behind them, the giant screen lit up with rows of pristine numbers. Too pristine, their quarterly report flawless, dazzling, and false. Malfa's smile curved, sweet but laced with poison. According to our data, profits rose 27% this quarter. Our European hotels alone exceeded projections by 15. Proof that our strategy has been entirely correct. The room stirred. Admiration flickered in some eyes, mockery in others, all of it directed at Scarlett. She sat in silence, her heart pounding like a war drum. She knew the numbers were fabricated, but silence would mean complicity. Silence would mean remaining invisible. From the head of the table, Grant leaned forward, voice even unreadable. Does anyone have a counterpoint? Scarlett's chair scraped against the polished floor as she stood. The sound cut through the murmurs, and the room stilled. Every gaze turned, some amused, some incredulous. A girl barely months in the company, daring to challenge at the very heart of Costa's empire. Her chin lifted. Her voice trembled at first, but her words were steady. I do, Malfa scoffed. Mark smirked. Elena Costa, seated quietly in the corner, arched a brow with quiet interest. Scarlett's fingers shook as she opened her folder, but the fear inside her chest had burned away into fire. She plugged in her laptop. The massive screen shifted to her own slides. The glowing numbers Malfa had flaunted loomed like a wall of lies, and she would tear them down. These figures, she began, her tone firming with each word, come from Costa's European division. The problem is, they're wrong. Gasps fluttered across the table. Mark's brow shot up. Malfa let out a dry laugh. A newcomer claiming our data is false. Scarlett, this isn't a classroom exercise at your community college. Scarlett ignored her. She clicked to the next file. Bilingual reports, side by side in English and French, then in flawless French. Her voice rang sharp. Chiffres falsifiés. Le rapport original indique une baisse de 12%, pas une hausse de 15%. Falsified figures. The original report shows a 12% drop, not a 15% increase. The room rippled with shock. French executives at the far end leaned forward, nodding in confirmation. Scarlett switched slides again this time, in German. Umsatzrückgang? Keine Steigerung. Diese Daten sind manipuliert. Revenue decreased, not increased. These numbers have been manipulated. The German delegates murmured, visibly unsettled. The atmosphere shifted, confidence cracking into doubt. Scarlett's voice cut through the air like steel, shredding the veil of deception. Malfa's complexion blanched. Mark clenched his jaw beneath the table. They hadn't expected Scarlett to strike back in their own languages. Finally, Scarlett revealed her last slide, the original reports in English, stamped by an independent audit firm. Her eyes shone with conviction. I'm not here to flaunt languages. I'm here to prove that no matter the tongue, the truth remains the same. The silence that followed thundered louder than any applause. Executives straightened in their seats, their eyes no longer dismissive, but filled with respect. At the head, Grant sat motionless, but his lips curved, just barely a ghost of a smile. The kind that meant he had witnessed something beyond expectation. Scarlett stood tall, her heart racing. But for once with pride, she was no longer the girl mistaken at a Park Avenue cafe. She had carved her name into Costa Tower's walls. Then, a French director spoke, voice trembling with candor. She's right. I saw the original. Paris profits fell due to maintenance costs. There was never any growth. A German director followed, his face flushed. We warned months ago. Inflated numbers only worsened the damage. A wave of unrest surged through the room. Nods, whispers, anger. The perfect report lay in ruins. Malfa slammed his palm on the table. You're all being manipulated by her. She's just a contract worker. She has no right to stand here and judge. Scarlett's gaze burned. My right comes from truth. What right do you have to deceive this board? The words cracked across the room like a hammer blow. Mark fumbled, sweat beading his temple. Perhaps a translation error. We'll review. Scarlett cut him off, her voice steady, cold. No mistranslation turns loss into profit. This wasn't error. It was intent. The word hung heavy. Fraud, trust, betrayal. They whispered it now, voices like knives. At last, Elena Costa spoke, her voice slow, iron wrapped in velvet. I have led Costa Group for 40 years. What I value is not perfect numbers, but honesty. And today, a young woman reminded me of that. She turned, eyes softening toward Scarlett. Scarlett Miller, you did what many in this room dared not. I am proud of you. Scarlett gripped the edge of the table, fighting back tears, not for victory, but for the first time in her life. Someone defended her openly, against the full weight of power. Across the table, Grant's gaze darkened, fathomless as the sea. He said nothing, but Scarlett felt it. He saw her now, not as a contract bride, but as a fighter. The room pulsed with tension. Malfa's pen shook in his fist. Rage flared in his eyes. He had ruled too long, but now he was being unmasked by a girl he'd dismissed. You'd trust an outsider over me, he snapped. I've served Costa 20 years. Who is she? A girl who's barely arrived. Scarlett's hand trembled, but her voice blazed. I stand on honest numbers. If you've truly served 20 years, you should know. Deceit has never kept an empire alive. A young director stood, his voice unsteady but resolute. I agree with Ms. Miller. I've seen the irregularities, but I was too afraid to speak. Today, she spoke for me. Others rose, voices joining. The tide surged. Malfa shrank beneath the growing wave of defiance. Mark tried once more, his tone forced calm. We only wanted to protect the company. Sometimes, numbers must be polished for shareholder trust. Grant's voice cut sharp. Final. Trust is not built on lies. Costa shareholders need no cowards hiding truth. The room shook. Scarlett's breath caught the first words from him all meeting, and they struck like a verdict. His eyes glimmered with something cold steel, yet protective. Malfa collapsed back into his chair, his power crumbling. Elena leaned forward, her tone decisive. This meeting is concluded. The audit team will review every report you submitted. Malfa. As for Scarlett Miller, she paused, the room holding its breath. Then she smiled. From this day forward, she will serve as independent advisor to the executive board. Applause burst, echoing against glass walls. Scarlett stood frozen, as if the ground beneath her had vanished. From obscurity, she had risen now at the center of Costa Tower itself. When the clapping died, she slipped into the golden-lit corridor of the 52nd floor. Manhattan stretched beneath her, cars gliding like rivers of fire. She leaned against the glass wall, her chest pounding, not from fear, but from the staggering truth that she had been heard. For once in her life, she was no longer invisible. The boardroom doors creaked open. Grant emerged, tall, composed, wrapped in the glow of ceiling lights. He didn't rush, just stood a few paces away, his gray eyes locked on her. You know? His voice was low, husky, breaking the silence. In that entire room, you were the only one who made it impossible for me to sit still. Scarlett froze, lips parted. She tried to answer, but he stepped closer. The city lights fractured in his gaze. You didn't just defend truth. You defended the honor of Costa. His tone dropped, almost a whisper, and I've never seen anyone brave enough to do that. Her throat tightened. His words struck deeper than she was ready for, erasing the cold edges of their contract and hinting at something far more dangerous. For the first time, his eyes no longer looked down at her. They met hers equal. Grant hesitated, then leaned in. His words meant only for her. Scarlett Miller, you don't belong in the shadows. You belong here. The world fell silent. Scarlett bit her lip, trembling between fear and exhilaration. And when he finally turned toward the elevators, her heart thundered so wildly she thought it might burst. Part 6. The distance narrows. La Bella Notte, a small Italian restaurant tucked into a quiet corner of Greenwich Village, couldn't have been further from the glittering world that usually surrounded Grant Costa. No chandeliers, no orchestra playing in the background, just wooden tables draped in white cloths, candles flickering gently in their glass holders, and the warm scent of roasted garlic, olive oil, and wine drifting through the air. Scarlett hesitated at the entrance, still unsettled by the short message she'd received that afternoon. 7 p. Fair. This address, don't come if you don't want to. She had almost deleted it, almost convinced herself not to go. But curiosity and something else she couldn't name drew her here. Her heart had begun to stir in ways she hadn't expected. Grant was already seated at a corner table, bathed in the soft glow of a wall lamp. Gone was the tailored suit and icy composure. Tonight he wore a crisp white shirt, the collar slightly open, his tie loosened. The silver-gray eyes that so often intimidated others looked different now, less guarded, almost uncertain. Scarlett's heels tapped softly against the wooden floor as she approached. "I never thought a CEO like you would choose a place like this," she teased, a playful smile tugging at her lips. Grant looked up, the corner of his mouth lifting. "And I never thought a girl like you would dare look me in the eye in a boardroom. Maybe we're both learning to step outside our habits." His reply caught her off guard. Her pulse stumbled as she slid into the chair across from him. The waiter arrived with steaming plates of pasta carbonara. Wisps of heat rose, fogging the rim of the red wine glasses. Scarlett twirled the golden strands of pasta with practiced grace, her movements elegant, natural. Grant tried the same, but the noodles slipped, falling against the rim of his plate and splattering sauce across his sleeve. Scarlett laughed out loud, surprising herself with the sound. It was light, free, stripped of formality. Hard to believe the man who silenced the Costa Tower board defeated by pasta. Grant stared at her, momentarily dazed. The candlelight danced across her face, her eyes sparkling with unrestrained joy. Then, for the first time in years, he laughed too, a deep, awkward, but genuine laugh. "I know how to fight battles. I've just never learned how to fight noodles." Shaking her head, Scarlett picked up her own fork, demonstrating a perfect swirl before handing it back across the table. "Here, it's not hard, just takes a little patience." Their eyes met, candlelight flickering between them. For a heartbeat, the walls of power and glass dissolved. There was no CEO, no contract, no silent weight of expectations, only two people fumbling their way across an invisible gap. Wine was poured, the deep red shimmering under the flame. Scarlett tilted her glass, inhaling the Tuscany grapes mingled with the aroma of pasta. Grant sat quiet, gaze lingering on the wavering flame, his face stripped of its usual armor. Finally, he spoke, his voice lower, rougher than usual. "Scarlett, do you ever think that some people, even standing at the very top, still feel completely lost?" Her fork paused. She studied him carefully. "You're talking about yourself, aren't you?" He gave a small, humorless smile. "When I was 10, family dinners were held at a table so long it took minutes to even see my parents' faces. I learned the perfect grip on a knife and fork. I learned to speak only what was proper, but no one ever truly listened." His eyes flickered with something raw, something unpolished. "Maybe that's why I never learned how to eat pasta like everyone else. I only learned how to fight, to take, to win." Scarlett's chest tightened. In that instant, she didn't see a ruthless CEO. She saw a lonely boy in an oversized suit, lost at a dinner table too large for him. Gently, she reached across, twirled a few strands of pasta on his plate, and set the fork back in front of him. You don't have to fight for everything. Sometimes, letting someone help is enough. He looked at her, and for the first time, the ice around his heart cracked. He picked up the fork again, clumsy, but willing, and succeeded. Scarlett laughed softly. Though there was a catch in her throat, she knew this wasn't about pasta at all. It was about trust. Music drifted from a speaker in the corner, a soft Italian ballad, violin notes, blending with a warm baritone voice. Grant's fork stilled. He rose slowly, stepping around the table, silver eyes gleaming with something vulnerable. "Scarlett." His voice dropped, almost shy. "Will you dance with me?" She blinked, startled. Here, between these tables, his smile was small, genuine. "I've negotiated in rooms 10 times more crowded. One dance isn't nearly as terrifying." Her laughter spilled out again, unguarded this time. She slipped her hand into his fingers colder than expected. Yet as they closed around hers, warmth rushed through her. They moved into the narrow space between tables. Guests glanced over, some smiling, as Grant placed a hand gently at her back. His steps were unpolished, uncertain, but sincere. Scarlett lifted her gaze to his, and in that fragile moment, every wall between them dissolved. No contracts, no titles, no distance. Just a man reaching, fumbling, trying to come closer. Her vision blurred. Maybe it was the wine, maybe the candlelight, or maybe it was because her heart had just been touched. "Where it was most tender," she whispered, almost trembling. "It's been a long time since I felt someone truly wanted to be beside me, with no reason at all." Grant's grip tightened. His answer, given only through his eyes deep, unyielding, memorizing her face, as if it was the only thing that mattered. When the music ended, soft applause rose around the room. Scarlett pulled back, cheeks flushed, but he held her hand a moment longer, reluctant to let go. Back at the table, the air between them felt transformed. The candles still flickered, the wine still shimmered, but the space across the table had grown smaller than ever. Scarlett drew a breath, as if summoning courage from the depths of her heart. "You should know. I worked in a coffee shop for 3 years, just to cover my mom's medical bills. My hand shook every night from exhaustion, and still, I didn't make it in time to say goodbye." Her voice trembled. She pressed her lips into a bitter smile. "Since then, I thought I had to be strong, to never show weakness. But truth is, some nights I just wanted to give up." Grant didn't interrupt. He only listened, truly listened. No pity, no judgment, just presence. When her voice broke, his hand reached across, covering hers with a quiet strength. "Scarlett, you don't have to be strong with me. I don't need perfect. I just want you as you are." Her tears slipped free, shining in the candlelight, and for the first time in years, she let them fall. Then, with a breath that seemed to come from deep within, Grant spoke again, his tone slow, weighted, as if opening a wound he had never shown another soul. "I once stood in a hospital room and watched my father die. I was 18. He taught me everything I know about business. He made me who I am. But in that moment, I realized no victory could ever bring a heart back to life." The candlelight traced shadows across his features, exposing a fragility he had long buried. "Since then, I've been afraid to hold on to people, afraid of losing them. So I kept distance from my family, from women who tried to reach me. I thought it was safe, but all it did was leave me alone." Scarlett lifted her gaze, her eyes wet, yet luminous. For the first time, she saw not a towering CEO, but a man carrying the same fears and wounds she carried. She squeezed his hand. "You're not the only one. I've run, Atu, built walls so high I couldn't see out. But in the end, it only made me lose what mattered most. His eyes softened, filled with something rare hope. Maybe. He whispered, "We don't need to be perfect. Maybe we don't have to be strong all the time. Maybe, if we let someone in, the fear doesn't feel so heavy." Her lips curved in a trembling smile. Another tear fell, but this one wasn't bitter. Two souls sat across from each other in a small Italian restaurant, surrounded by the endless glitter of New York City. Yet in that fragile, luminous moment, their hearts had begun to beat in the same rhythm. Part 7. A family reunited. The road leading back to the little town where Scarlett grew up hadn't changed much at all. Rows of maple trees flanked the way, their leaves now turning a fiery blend of gold and crimson. Dry foliage rustled softly under the wheels of a sleek black Bentley. Grant sat behind the wheel, his usual steady composure shadowed by something else, an unfamiliar unease. It wasn't the bumpy road or the unfamiliar landscape. It was the fact that, for the first time, he was stepping into Scarlett's private world, the world she had belonged to before fate hurled her into the relentless storm of New York. Scarlett sat quietly in the passenger seat, her fingers tightening around the edge of her dress. With every mile they passed, her heartbeat grew louder. She hadn't been home in years, not since her father had been left alone in the old wooden house where he had once poured his life into a small antique workshop. She could almost smell the pine shavings, the resin, hear the soft rhythm of his stories at night. When the car finally stopped in front of the two-story house, Scarlett's throat tightened. The red brick walls bore stains of time. The wooden door sagged slightly, yet the wind chime her mother had once bought at a county fair still dangled from the porch. Its faint jingle carried the sound of home. At the noise of the car, a silver-haired man rushed out. His eyes glistened with barely contained joy. "Scarlett, my girl." Before she could even step out, he had pulled her into his arms. Her tears came instantly, unrestrained. For a moment, she wasn't a grown woman carrying secrets and scars. She was just a daughter, small again, safe again, pressed into the warmth of a father's embrace. Grant stood still, watching. The sight of Scarlett trembling in her father's arms struck him harder than any boardroom confrontation ever had. For once, the billionaire who had commanded empires knew this moment was not his to claim. It belonged entirely to them. But then, her father noticed the tall figure nearby. His arms loosened, his eyes narrowed with cautious curiosity. "And this is..." Scarlett wiped her tears and turned, her smile fragile but brave. "Dad, this is Grant. I'm sure you've seen him on television." Grant stepped forward and extended his hand. "It's an honor to meet you." "Sir, I didn't just come to bring Scarlett home. I came to tell you that this workshop deserves a second chance." The old man froze. Scarlett's head snapped toward Grant, her eyes wide. The air grew thick, charged with surprise, with hope, with something neither of them had dared to expect. The wooden door creaked as her father pushed it open. A gust of air, carrying the scent of dry resin and dust, swept out. Inside, sunlight filtered through a cracked window, casting golden streaks across forgotten relics. A pendulum clock frozen since the 70s. A leather armchair split with age. A hulking radio, once alive with Sinatra's voice. Scarlett's hand trembled as she touched the oak cabinet her father had once spent months carving. The memories hit her in a wave. Childhood afternoons, filled with the scrape of chisels, the hum of saws, and her father's laughter echoing through the beams. Grant lingered at the threshold, strangely humbled. The cramped, dusty air was nothing like the gleaming glass offices of Manhattan, yet it pulled at him with quiet gravity. Her father's voice broke the silence, deep and proud, though tinged with sorrow. "Every piece in here has a soul, but people don't pay for memories anymore. They want things fast. New. Cheap. I thought about selling the place, but I couldn't bring myself to. Grant's gaze settled on a mahogany box carved with swallows. He opened it gently. Inside lay a bundle of letters, yellowed with time. Scarlett spoke softly. Those are love letters. A soldier wrote them to his wife during World War II. His family brought them here, asked my father to keep them safe. To them, it wasn't paper. It was a lifetime of love. Grant said nothing. His fingers trembled slightly as he held the fragile pages. Numbers, contracts, mergers, all of that seemed meaningless compared to the weight of these letters. He lifted his eyes to Scarlett, and something inside him shifted. "Scarlett!" His voice cracked. "You grew up surrounded by this." She nodded, smiling sadly. "Yes, I learned to love what was old, what others wanted to throw away. Maybe that's why I've always believed everyone deserves a second chance." Her words pierced him. For years, he had built his empire on novelty, perfection, ruthlessness. But standing here, surrounded by relics of lives once lived, he understood true value wasn't in what shined new, but in what endured. Then, with a steadiness that surprised even him, Grant spoke. "I want to invest in this place, to restore it, to turn it into more than a workshop, a center where antiques live again, where their stories are shared with the world." The words dropped into the room like sparks. Scarlett gasped. Her father froze, a hammer still clutched in his hand. You would do that," Scarlett stammered, her eyes shimmering with disbelief. Grant's gaze softened, his voice no longer that of a CEO, but of a man laying down a piece of his soul. "Some values can't be measured in profit. This workshop, your history, it matters. Investing here means investing in your family's heart. And also," he paused, then turned to Scarlett, his silver eyes unflinching, "investing in the part of my heart I'm only beginning to understand." The silence that followed was heavy, yet tender. Scarlett turned away, hiding tears that glistened in the lamplight. Her father stood still, his expression unreadable, until at last a slow, quiet smile spread across his weathered face. "If you truly mean that," he said, voice rough with emotion, "then perhaps, for the first time, I believe someone outside this family could become its strength." The next morning, sunlight spilled through the cracked windows of the workshop. It was no longer a silent, dusty tomb, but alive again, buzzing with laughter, with the rhythm of tools, with hope. Scarlett rolled up her sleeves, wearing a checkered shirt. She almost laughed out loud at the sight of Grant, her immaculate CEO, now in a plain white t-shirt, clumsily lifting planks, smudged with paint, sweat on his brow. At one point, a streak of pale blue paint smudged across his cheek. Scarlett stepped closer, pulled out a handkerchief, and gently wiped it away. "You really don't fit in with manual labor," she teased, eyes twinkling. Grant chuckled, his voice low, warm. "Maybe not. But if it makes you smile, I'll happily be clumsy forever." Her heart skipped. She turned away, pretending to focus on a shelf, but her pulse betrayed her pounding with a joy she couldn't deny. From across the room, her father watched silently, a quiet smile forming. The burden of years seemed lighter on his shoulders. By evening, the three of them sat on the porch steps, golden sunset washing over the restored antiques inside. Scarlett's eyes filled as she whispered, "I never thought I'd live to see this place breathe again." Grant tilted his head, his voice softer than the falling dusk. "This isn't just your family's workshop, Scarlett. It's your story, and I want to be part of it." Her hand trembled, then found his. She didn't pull away. Not this time. Days later, the antique shop gleamed under a freshly carved sign, sunlight spilling over bouquets sent by neighbors who had come to celebrate its rebirth. Scarlet, in a simple pale blue dress, stood with scissors trembling in her hand. Her father by her side, eyes wet with pride. Grant stood quietly in the crowd, content to let the spotlight fall on her. He didn't need recognition. Watching Scarlet shine was more than enough. On behalf of my family, Scarlet's voice carried, soft but strong. Thank you. This shop is more than a business. It is memory. It is story. It is part of who I am. Applause thundered. A little boy shouted joyfully, Miss Scarlet, you brought it back to life. Scarlet laughed through her tears, her gaze instinctively searching for Grant. He was there, steady, proud, eyes filled, not with ambition, but with something far deeper. Later, when the crowd dispersed and twilight bathed the courtyard in gold, only Scarlet and Grant remained. She stepped toward him, her voice breaking gently. Thank you, Grant, not just for today, but for seeing me in ways I never even saw myself. He reached forward, brushing a stray lock of hair from her cheek. His whisper carried like a vow. Scarlet, I've never seen anything more beautiful. And in that moment, the distance between a billionaire and a small-town girl truly disappeared. There was only the sound of the wind chime, and two hearts learning to beat as one. Part 8. The Gala of Destiny. That night, the Metropolitan Museum glittered like a palace of stars. Its colossal glass doors swung open to reveal a world of opulence. Vaulted ceilings carved with angelic murals, crystal chandeliers that spilled golden light, violins echoing beneath the marble arches, and a sea of gowns and tuxedos shimmering under the glow. This wasn't just another annual gala. It was the very summit of New York society, where power, art, and politics converged beneath one roof. At the foot of the grand staircase, Scarlet froze. Her emerald evening gown clung to her frame, its long train whispering against the marble floor. Never had she stepped into a world so dazzling, where every glance cut sharp as a blade. Grant extended his hand, his grip steady, his expression calm and anchor amid her storm. You all right? He asked softly, his baritone edged with concern. Scarlet swallowed hard, forcing a smile. I never thought I'd stand in a place like this. Grant bent closer, his lips brushing the air by her ear. You're not just standing here, Scarlet. You belong here. The words stilled her. Flashbulbs erupted, a storm of reporters shouting their names. Whispered voices chased them through the grand hall. Is that Scarlet Miller? And nobody. She's with Grant Costa. Look at her. She's stunning. Each word landed like a blade, but Scarlet's armor was Grant's unyielding hand around hers. At the center of the hall, Elena Costa emerged, draped in black satin, pearls woven through her silver hair. She commanded silence with nothing but her gaze. Scarlet's chest tightened. Whatever was coming, it would change everything. The silver chimes rang out. Elena ascended the crystal dais, champagne glass in hand. The violins hushed. 100 conversations died. The room froze beneath her presence. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena began, her voice low yet thunderous, each syllable carved into the marble silence. Tonight is more than the Costa Foundation Gala. Tonight, I share a truth that will alter this family's future. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Scarlet's hands dampened with sweat. Beneath the table, Grant's touch steadied her. Elena lifted her glass higher, her eyes gleaming like ice. Scarlet Miller is not only my son's wife, she carries within her the next heir to the Costa legacy. Scarlet is pregnant with my grandchild. The explosion was instant. Gasps, shouts, glasses clattered to the marble floor. Scarlet's breath caught, the world spinning. No one but Grant had known her secret. Now, it was laid bare before the most ruthless eyes in New York. Grant's hand clutched hers. His gaze said what his lips didn't. I'm here. I'll never leave you. But Elena wasn't done. Her voice sharpened to steel, and as proof of my faith, I hereby transfer 55% of Costa Group shares to Scarlett Miller. From this day, she is not only my daughter-in-law, but the rightful heir, the partner who will stand beside me and Grant in leading this empire. The hall erupted, shattered glass, raised voices, outrage. A storm of disbelief tore through the crowd. Malfa, Elena's fiercest rival, shot to his feet, face flushed crimson. A joke. Elena, you hand over more than half of Costa Group to her, a girl with no pedigree, no legacy, nothing but a womb carrying your grandchild. This is madness. The room fractured. Some gasped in agreement. Others sat in stunned silence. Scarlett shrank under the weight of 1,000 eyes' envy, contempt, scorn, awe. She felt stripped bare. He's exposed to the bone. Elena, unfazed, raised her glass with lethal calm. You forget, Malfa, Costa Group was not built on greed, but on loyalty and integrity. Scarlett has proven both before the world stage, and that child will carry the Costa name. To reject her is to reject our very bloodline. Before Malfa could reply, Grant rose. His arm slid protectively around Scarlett's shoulders, his voice cutting through the uproar like thunder. Anyone here who doubts Scarlett's worth, look at me. I, Grant Costa, recognize not only my wife, but a woman of intellect and courage. She has achieved what many of you never dared attempt. If you want to fight, you fight me, not her. The words detonated across the hall. A hush fell. A few heads bowed. Yet Malfa sneered, his voice dripping venom. Touching. But love-blind sentiment will not save a billion-dollar empire. The world will laugh at us, an ex-hotel maid crowned queen of Costa Group. Scarlett's teeth clenched, pain tearing at her pride. A hot tear slid down her cheek, not of weakness, but of defiance. She refused to bow. Elena's glass slammed onto the crystal podium, the crack resounding like judgment. One more insult toward my daughter-in-law, and you will walk out of this room. The Costa doors will never open to those who spit on our future. Silence, choking, suffocating silence. Outside, fireworks erupted over New York, cascades of silver fire streaking across the night sky. Yet in the museum's shadowed hallways, Scarlett folded into her hands, her gown suddenly heavier than armor. The whispers clung to her like thorns. Gold digger, lucky womb, disgrace. Grant found her in the corner, the glow of fireworks haloing his face. He placed a handkerchief gently on her knee. Scarlett, you've been stronger than you know. She looked up, eyes swollen, lips trembling with a bitter smile. Stronger. I sat there while they shredded me, while they mocked our child, and all I did was cry. Grant's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away her tears. They can doubt, they can sneer, but you are not a pawn, not to me. Tonight, you forced them to see you. That alone is power. Her laugh broke, raw, pained. Without you, without your mother, I'm just no one. Grant's grip tightened, his voice low and unwavering. No, you are the woman who taught me to believe again in people, not just numbers. Tonight, I didn't rise to defend a company. I rose because I feared losing you. The words struck her deeper than any wound. In his eyes, she saw no empire, no contracts, only a man who had surrendered his pride for her. Her voice quivered. And if one day I can't be strong enough to stand, he silenced her with certainty, his hand entwining hers, then I will stand for you. That is not a promise. It is truth. Beyond the windows, the sky shattered into silver light. But for Scarlett, the brightest flare was in Grant's eyes. Later, back in the great hall, Elena returned to the stage, her silver hair shimmering beneath the spotlight. Her voice rose, resonant, unshakable. Enough whispers. Scarlett Miller is not a burden. She is my heir. From tonight, she carries 55% of Costa Group. This is my will, my word, and my decree. Whoever refuses to stand with her may leave. Scarlett's tears fell again, but this time they were not of shame. They were of pride. She, once scorned as invisible, had been lifted to a place no one could deny. Grant leaned close, his whisper threading through the roar of applause. Do you see now? This isn't my battle alone. This is our victory. Scarlett clasped his hand, trembling but resolute. For the first time, she knew she was no longer an outsider. She was part of the empire. And in that storm of judgment and fire, Scarlett smiled the smile of a woman who had turned scorn into power. A smile born for destiny. Part 9. Giving the enemy an exit. The 72nd floor of Costa Tower stretched like a fortress of glass above Manhattan. Afternoon light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow across polished walnut floors. On the far wall hung an oil painting of New York in the 1900s, a reminder of legacy, of permanence, of power. At the center of it all sat Scarlett Costa. The black leather chair embraced her upright figure. Her navy blue suit, sharp against her pearl necklace, Elena's gift at the gala, though her heart still trembled from that night's revelation. Today demanded more. Today, she would face the man who had tried to destroy her. The doors creaked open. Malfa entered. His gray suit was immaculate, but his gait heavy. The arrogance once dripping from his every step had thinned to weariness. His voice, rough and guarded, carried both bitterness and fatigue. You wanted to see me. Scarlett's gaze locked on his. No, Malfa, I wanted to end this. The silence that followed was suffocating. Only the clock ticked steadily. Each second a hammer. Malfa's lips twisted into a bitter smile. And this, after everything I've done for Costa Group. You think you can just throw me out? Scarlett slid a thick folder onto the desk, her voice cool but unwavering. For 20 years, you've served this company. I respect that. But I cannot ignore the numbers you manipulated, the trap you set for me at Meridian, the way you weakened the very empire you swore to protect. Her words landed like stone on water, rippling, cutting. Malfa faltered, eyes drifting to the city skyline outside, as though searching for a piece of the man he used to be. So this is it? His laugh was hollow. I lose everything. Because of a girl no one had even heard of 2 years ago. Scarlett's expression softened, though her resolve did not. No, Malfa, you lose everything because you never knew when to stop. I don't want to destroy you. I want to end this cycle of bitterness before it consumes us both. For the first time, Malfa truly looked at her. In her eyes, there was no triumph, only compassion, the kind that stripped him bare. For a fleeting moment, he saw himself again, the ambitious young man he had once been, before power devoured him. Scarlett reached into her drawer and laid out a second folder. This is my final decision. Inside, Malfa found the termination letter cold, official, undeniable. But behind it, a recommendation letter signed by Scarlett herself, honoring his decades of service. And one more document, a generous severance package that would allow him to live in dignity for the rest of his life. His hands shook, his voice broke. You believe I deserve this. After everything I did to destroy you. Scarlett's eyes glistened, not for what you did to me, but for what you once gave to this company. I can't erase your mistakes, Malfa, but I can choose to close this chapter with mercy, so neither of us is chained to hatred anymore. For the first time in decades, tears welled in Malfa's eyes. He clutched the papers like a lifeline, shoulders trembling. Scarlett, perhaps you're stronger now than I ever was. The late sun bled gold across the office, bathing them both in a light that felt like forgiveness. Scarlett's voice was a whisper, but it carried weight. Go! Malfa, this isn't your end. It's your chance to start again. He rose slowly, bowing deeply, his first gesture of respect in years. When the doors opened, Grant stepped in, pausing at the sight of Malfa. The once feared rival now looked small, diminished, but strangely at peace, tears still staining his face. Without a word, Malfa nodded once to Scarlet and left. Grant turned to her, stunned. "What did you just do?" Scarlet exhaled, weary yet serene. "I fired him, but I gave him back his dignity. No more power games, just a way out." Grant's silence was heavy with awe. At last, he stepped closer, his hand warm on her shoulder. "Scarlet, you didn't just do the right thing, you did the impossible. Even I might not have had the courage to show mercy." Her lips curved, trembling, but proud. "I used to think justice meant revenge. But now, I see it's when you have the power to punish, but choose to open another path instead." Grant pulled her into his arms, holding her against the fire-lit sky. "And that's why you're not just my wife. You're the soul of this empire." The next morning, Scarlet faced the board of directors. Crystal chandeliers burned overhead, oil paintings of old leaders gazing down as if to judge her. 11 pairs of eyes watched, skeptical, sharp. "Do you realize what you've done?" one elder demanded. "Malfa gave 30 years to this company. A reckless decision like this could unravel our stability." Scarlet stood tall, her voice steady, her eyes unwavering. This was not reckless. Stability does not come from protecting lies. It comes from transparency, from trust, from knowing when an old era must end. Her words cut the air. Silence followed, slowly. One younger director nodded. "She's right. Mercy does not weaken us. It strengthens us. This company must be led with humanity." Murmurs rose around the table. Skepticism gave way to reluctant respect. Finally, another board member sighed. "Perhaps it's time Costa Group stepped into a new era." Scarlet bowed slightly, her eyes wet with unspilled tears. She understood. She had not only given Malfa an exit, she had given the Empire itself a chance to change. When she left the chamber, whispers trailed behind her. Young employees stopped to stare, admiration shining in their faces. For the first time, Scarlet was no longer seen as an outsider, but as a leader. At the end of the corridor, Grant was waiting. His gaze burned with pride. Without hesitation, he pulled her into his arms before everyone. "Scarlet, today you made this empire yours, and I've never been prouder in my life." Her voice was soft, but resolute. "I didn't do it for me. I did it for us, for a different tomorrow." Grant's voice rose, clear enough for the entire floor to hear. "From this day forward, Costa Group will be led not only by power, but by compassion. And the one who taught me that is my wife." Applause thundered down the hall. Some even wept, moved by the sight of a woman who had once been nobody, now standing as the moral heart of an empire. Scarlet leaned into Grant's embrace, her heart steady at last. Beyond the windows, the storm cleared. Sunlight poured across the tower like a crown of fire. From that day, Scarlet was no longer just a girl who had shouted at the wrong man in a cafe. She was the woman who chose mercy when vengeance was easy, and by doing so, became the soul of Costa Group. Part 10. True Love. New York glittered beneath them. The city spread out like an upside-down sky of stars. On the rooftop of Costa Tower, once reserved for the secret gatherings of the ultra-rich, there was no orchestra tonight, no champagne pyramids. Instead, strands of soft golden lights curled around arches of white roses, and a single piano whispered its notes into the autumn air. Scarlet stood at the edge of the balcony, one hand resting gently on her swollen belly. 8 months along, every small movement inside her felt like a miracle. She didn't need a mirror to know she was radiant. Yet even now, She still found it hard to believe how life could change so quickly from a cold marriage of contract to this night where her heart was waiting for the one thing it had always longed for. From behind, Grant approached, tall and steady beneath the warm light. His black tuxedo fit him like a modern prince, but what stopped Scarlett's breath was not the man himself. It was the velvet blue box in his hand. He sank to one knee without hesitation. The world around them seemed to fall silent. His voice, husky and trembling, but fierce with resolve, broke the stillness. "Scarlett, the first time we stood here, all I saw was a stubborn, fiery girl who dared point her finger at me and scold me in a Park Avenue cafe. But tonight, I see a woman who changed an empire, and I see the mother of my child. Will you marry me not for a contract, not for appearances, but for love?" Tears rushed down Scarlett's cheeks as she clutched him tightly. In that instant, she was no longer just a name on paper, no longer the chosen one, but simply herself, a woman finally seen, finally cherished. She nodded through her tears, her voice breaking. "Grant, yes, but this time, not just for love, for family, because you are my home." He slid the diamond ring onto her finger, then kissed it as though sealing a vow. Rising, he placed his hand on her round belly and whispered, "I promise, from this day on, you and our child will be the only reason I fight." Fireworks erupted over the Hudson, scattering their brilliance across the night sky, wrapped in each other's arms. They knew this wasn't just a proposal, it was the beginning of true love. Morning draped Central Park in a golden veil. The great lawn had been transformed into a fairy tale garden. White roses and lavender arched overhead, forming a pathway straight into happiness. Violins played softly, mingling with the calls of morning birds, turning the moment into a natural symphony. Scarlett walked slowly, her white lace gown tracing over her 8-month pregnancy. Her rounded belly didn't dim her beauty, it magnified it, making her glow like the very embodiment of life and love. Her hair was swept into a soft bun, a few strands brushing her face. Her eyes bright with tears yet shining like dew. Every step she took was a miracle. Who would have imagined that the girl once dismissed as nothing, once used as a pawn in a game of power, would now be the center of New York's grandest celebration? At the end of the path, Grant waited, his ivory tuxedo banishing all traces of the cold businessman. His eyes were only on Scarlett, not on the elite guests, not on the flashing cameras, but on the woman carrying his love and his family. When Scarlett faltered, her legs trembling, Grant stepped forward without hesitation. He took her hand, held it tight, and whispered, "No one will ever force you to walk alone again. From now on, I'll be your shoulder." Scarlett laughed through her tears, and the crowd fell silent before erupting into applause that rolled like a wave. Their vows were not spoken by a minister, but by their own trembling voices. Grant's gaze pierced hers, his voice steady, yet quivering with emotion. "I promise to love you as I love my own life. I promise to protect you, no matter how cruel the world becomes, and I promise never again will you doubt this love." Scarlett's reply came soft, broken by sobs, but each word struck deep into every heart that listened. "I don't need you perfect. I just need you here to raise this child with me, to grow old with me. Grant, you are my home." When their lips met, autumn leaves drifted down from the ancient oak tree above, as if nature itself was blessing them. In that moment, Central Park ceased to be a park. It became a cathedral of love. The world witnessed it. Newspapers would soon declare billionaire CEO, and the girl once overlooked together redefining marriage in the upper echelons. But to Scarlett and Grant, none of that mattered. For them, this kiss was the only truth. Later, When the guests had gone and the city lights flickered on again, Grant led Scarlett down a quiet tree-lined path. Away from cameras, away from curious eyes, they found a rare pocket of peace. She leaned into him, weary from the long day. He wrapped his jacket around her shoulders, his voice soft. "You've stood all day. I should never have let you tire yourself like this. I'm sorry." Scarlett shook her head, smiling gently. "Don't apologize. Today is the happiest day of my life. I'll never forget it." They sat on a wooden bench, his hand resting over the little life moving inside her. His eyes softened, stripped of every cold edge the boardroom once demanded. "I never thought I'd marry. I believed marriage was only numbers and strategy. But then you came, and you unraveled everything." Her eyes glistened, her voice trembling. "And I thought I would live forever as someone else's shadow, a pawn, forgotten. But today, you've shown me I am worthy of love." Grant pressed a kiss to her tears, whispering his second vow. "No one will ever make you feel small again. Scarlett, you are the most precious thing in my life, and our child will grow up surrounded by love, not by the cold walls of power." She sobbed openly, but this time with joy. Leaning against his shoulder, she let the sound of his heartbeat assure her. A gentle breeze stirred, carrying golden leaves in circles around them. "Like nature's embrace." "He just kicked," Scarlett whispered with a teary laugh. "He heard you." "Grant." Grant's eyes lit up with wonder. He held her tighter, his voice thick with awe. "Then from now on, I'll tell both of you every single day that I love you more than anything in this world." It was quiet, but not empty. It was the quiet of hearts beating together, of love that had finally found its place. That night, back at the penthouse, there were no grand gestures of luxury, no dazzling show, just candles flickering along the hall, rose petals scattered on the floor, and the gentle scent of lavender in the air. Scarlett, exhausted, sank into the armchair. Grant, once a man who commanded thousands, knelt to slip off her shoes. She blushed, whispering, "You don't have to do that." His gaze was tender, unshakable. "Once I thought love was a luxury, but with you, Scarlett, I want to do everything just to remind you that here you are not a CEO's wife. You are simply Scarlett, the woman I love." She touched his cheek, eyes shining. "Grant Costa, the greatest luxury of my life is seeing you like this." He rested his head on her belly, whispering to their child, "Hello, little one. Today, your mother and I became husband and wife for real. I promise you will never know loneliness. You'll grow up seeing love every day. Even in this cold world." The baby kicked, and they both laughed, a laughter more genuine than any wealth could buy. And when Scarlett drifted into sleep, Grant stayed awake, watching her with reverence. The city glowed beyond the glass, but in his eyes, only she mattered. Holding her hand, he whispered one last vow into the night. "Scarlett, I love you today, tomorrow, and forever." And so, the wedding night of one of New York's most powerful couples was not marked by extravagance, but by something far rarer: simplicity, tenderness, and the sacred transformation of a CEO into a husband and soon a father. Sometimes, mistakes aren't the end. They're the beginning of a journey. When you dare to step through them, you may just find the door to happiness waiting on the other side. Have you ever made a mistake that changed your life forever? Share your story in the comments below. And if this love story touched your heart, rate it from 0 to 10. We'd love to feel your true emotions